There are many problems facing our country today. That is no secret. But far too often in Washington, the methods of dealing with these problems are left in secret and shrouded in mystery. And time again, we don't see the results we need. Results in issues that directly and profoundly impact us as students. I am the only person in this race who's committed to complete transparency and legitimacy. Some candidates on this stage have been engaging in dishonesty, and so because of this, I am the person here to create clear policies. It's not a secret that our current education system is in shambles. It's not a secret that the environment is crumbling or that our healthcare system needs addressing. It is not a secret that our foreign policy is not at its best. We all know this. If elected, I plan on doing away with all the secrecy. Washington will be transparent. My campaign's policies are already up on our website. The achievement gap is expanding. In 2012, black students had only a 69% graduation rate and Hispanic students had a 73% rate, while Asian students had an 88% graduation rate and Caucasian students had an 86% rate. Our country is ranked 36th in the world for our educational system, behind countries that only fully industrialized in the 20th century, such as Japan and Singapore. Clearly, students today are not getting the education they need to adequately prepare them for the working world. One of the major issues with our current educational system is its inability to regulate curriculums across a national scale. The sole factor of where someone lives may determine the extent of their college readiness as a result of their public education. A simple example of this disparity can be seen with the fact that the National Merit Scholarship is not based off of one standard score. It is determined on a state-to-state basis where students in the state, like West Virginia in 2015, had to only earn a score of 209, selection index score, to qualify, while students in Massachusetts had to earn a 222. This variance is a necessary step the scholarship board has to take to equalize the playing field to offset the wide differences caused by varying differences in public education. To end these inconsistencies, my campaign promises to support and maintain a standard curriculum. Currently, the system that is in place is Common Core. While this curriculum is nowhere near ideal and is still going through the inevitable adjustments that must occur when a system is newly implemented, it is the most successful option to equalize education at this time. This improvement can be shown through a recent analysis of standards from across the country that found that the Common Core was better than most state standards, and the fact that tests associated with the new curriculum, such as the PARCC test, include performance assessments which can assess a wider range of skills than just multiple choice questions. When we talk about generalizing the educational system, we are not advocating for teaching every student the exact same thing. Each state would still be able to teach locally oriented history or perhaps literature classes. Instead, it would be the general guidelines of what needs to be taught, more importantly, when that would be taught, that would be the same across the nation. Now, while saying this, it is vital to note that my administration will be working actively to research the best methods of education learning as possible. We'll be actively improving Curriculum 2.0 and looking at a variety of options. If it becomes clear at some point that a better system is available, we'll be more than willing to implement a new structure. However, for now, we are confident that the state standards are the superlative guidelines out there. Another provision that I would support as president is school choice in the form of unique public school programs. I believe that magnet and charter schools are useful because they allow students to have an expanded amount of educational outcomes and the ability to choose where they want to go to school based on personal interest, rather than just because they live within the boundaries of their area. The more students feel a system of schooling is relevant to them, the more likely they are to invest themselves in their education. If a student is able to go to school that caters, for example, their interest in science, they are much more likely to have an increased sense of motivation at that school. When I refer to school choice, I'm including a set of defined limits. Mobility would only be allowed within a county, and only some schools would be designated within that area as choices, based on some program that they offer. These charter and magnet schools would be overseen by the states and on a limited basis by the federal government to ensure that they all meet certain minimum standards that are equated within the choice system. This prevents the loophole whereby charter schools offer the same, if not a worse, education than the normal schools, such as in New Jersey, where 70% of the charter schools without a large amount of regulation scored lower or the same as the established public schools in math and 60% in the language arts. The process for being accepted to the schools would be determined by the states and or counties, but would have to meet a federal fairness guidelines against any discrimination. When education becomes corrupt and dysfunctional, it often leads directly to institutionalized political change. In All the King's Men, it isn't until a faulty school structure built on negligence and apathy collapses that Willie Stark truly rises to fame. By improving education, I strive to provide a new and innovative businesses with creative and intelligent employees who have received a fair and well-rounded education. This is not possible to achieve with the current state of high schools that are leading the future of our country away from their true potential. I define an ideal education as one in which students are prepared to be educated employees who enter the workforce. This will result in a new and improved control of the state, our research centers, universities, and hospitals. In terms of the environment, I believe climate change is a critical issue that needs to be dealt with immediately. Because of this, my presidency would maintain EPA regulations for businesses to ensure that they are doing everything possible to maintain clean energy processes. This would not be working against them. It would be working with them to make sure that they meet certain standards. If they fail to follow these regulations, a variety of sanctions would be imposed by the federal government, such as monetary fines. However, businesses who comply and exceed the set standards would be rewarded with such privileges as tax credit, which would provide other businesses with the incentive to follow the set example. My presidency would also support all forms of renewable energy, such as hydro and solar power. Federal money would be directed to private organizations that are working to improve the technology associated with those sectors in an attempt to expand our knowledge of alternatives to fossil fuels. The fossil fuels that do exist in our country would not be eliminated, but would be regulated in such a way so as to create the least amount of environmental destruction as possible. This would help combat the recently seen alarming trends such as a 258% increase in global methane abundance and a 4.93 parts per million level of CO2, which is the highest amount in 650,000 years. Although foreign policy is a case-sensitive topic, one possible way global relations may be implemented is through the cooperative efforts among the major industrial countries of the world to reform the use of fossil fuels and work together to find new and efficient ways to use energy. These renewable sources are a necessity to the environment, as our current forms of energy are just not viable. They not only have limited use, but are also not long-term solutions to the eternal problems we as a country and we as a world have created with lackluster policy. I know Douglas MacArthur. Rather than sending troops in at the slightest sign of any battle, I will work with other leaders of foreign nations to find safer and longer-lasting energy sources that will benefit not only us as citizens, but conserve the environment, so we may continue to enjoy the other great resources it gives us for a long time to come. Environmental education must also be made a priority among the educational path of children, so they can start learning at a young age about the dangers we face as a planet if global warming continues at this trend. Students who are taught at a very young age about positive, safe behaviors towards their surroundings will grow up with an instilled sense of conservation and appreciation towards their environment. Throughout my administration, I hope to successfully deal with all these issues without ignoring one or focusing too much on any of the other ones. Because of this, it is important to me to have a presidency that is well-rounded and knowledgeable on all the issues rather than just an expert on just a few. To meet this goal, I will appoint various advisors to ensure that I'm getting the best subject-specific advice in each area. Please approach me with the questions you have regarding my actions and opinions, and I will listen with an open mind that we may make this country prosperous together. Thank you.